Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of the series. Today we'll learn how to send an email automatically via Gmail. We will use our keylogger that we made in a previous part, but if you only want to learn how to use Python to send automated messages, this tutorial will also teach you that. Okay, so first we'll create a Python file. Save it in the folder, give it a name. Python has a built-in package called SMTP lib, so library, which will allow us to do so. When we have this library, we'll also need something to write our message into, because we cannot simply send a text message. We'll have to transform it into ASCII symbols and just encode it. And to use it, we will use email.mime, whatever, multipart, and from email to text import. So what is this MIME? It is also a protocol that puts text from the email. It encodes it in ASCII. It allows you to send attachments, and it's basically used widely as a go-to protocol and data configuration. So of course, let's first set up our message. To do it, we can set up message equals my multipart, which basically creates a blueprint for a message, which will consist of course multiple parts. Then we can actually assign our address and receiver address and that password. So MIME it's like kind of a dictionary with key from. So basically our email address. Let's assign it to sender address. We'll fill that in later. Of course, we want to send our email, so I will also include sender address, as we want to send an email to ourselves. We also want to include a subject, and we can call it automated email. Perfect. Now we have to attach to our message some components. So we will want to attach just a text, which in our case will be my text, and here content plain. So it simply means that it's just a text inside our email, plain text. But what is content? We have to of course define it. Let's first set it to maybe test. Okay. Then let's define our sender address. I'll use my email and sender password. We'll also need to include that. Okay. So now we have all of the necessary parts that we'll have to include in the message, and we want to send it now. Let's call it create message, send. So we have to create a so-called session for SMTP. So let's go session equals smtplib.SMTP. And here we have to specify an address, SMTP address, and basically every email provider has its own address and port. So we can simply Google it, Gmail SMTP address, and we have smtp.gmail.com, and we have to specify a port. Here it's 587. Then we do session.start TLS, which basically enables security features. So we encode somehow our message so no one can catch it and kind of hack us. Then we'll have to log in to our Gmail, session.login, sender address, and sender password, and then we have to send an email through our SMTP. So session.sendMail, sender address, now receiver address, so sender address as well, and we will have to include our text, which in our case, or actually our MIME message. So we will type in message.sString, which is a function that will basically convert our message to a string value, to text. So actually our SMTP can somehow read this. And we quit our session, quickly go through the code, what it does. Okay, so first we have my multipart, which is a message with generally used encoding type of a message. We specify from who we send the message, to whom we send a message, and the message subject, and of course content of our message. Then we send an email. We use SMTP library for it, or SMTP protocol. We created, specify a host address, which in our case is Gmail, and its port. We activate protection, so we encode our mail so no one can see it besides us or sender. We log into a session with our password and address, and we send an email. Then we finish our session and tell our SMTP to stop. Okay, and when we run it, we encounter an error, which is SMTP authentication error. And this is because Gmail has protection, so no one can do it, what we are doing it basically. It's just a safety measure to protect you, but we can disable it. We can simply type in Google less secure apps Gmail. First link, we find here more secure apps, or less secure app access, and we can see we can turn on less secure apps. It's updated. We can close this, and now when we run our program again and we wait a bit, and then we can check our email, and we can see an automated email test. Perfect. So now we will, if you only wanted to learn how to send an email via Python, that's all. But if you want to actually send our keylogger that we made last time, just take for 1 more minute. Instead of content equal test, we will change it to open log file, so our log file from the previous video, dot read. So it will basically read the whole log file, and we will change automated email to maybe include a date in here. So what we have to do, from datetime import datetime, and we'll cast it to string. We already know this command from the last video. Datetime.now. Nice. And now we run it. We can see it finished, and we check our mail, and beautiful subject, we have current date, our even with milliseconds, and the contents of our log file. Yep. But of course we want it to be somehow connected, so let's edit our main. Let's make it so our file is sent every 50 characters, for example. So in our onPress function, which is activated every time we press a button on a keyboard, we'll add a global variable, so visible from the whole code, not only this function. Key count. Here we'll initiate it to 0. And then every time we click a key, we will add onto it key count +1. So it basically plus equals 1 means key count equals key count +1. Here in our onPress function, we want to have 50 keys. So if key count is larger than 50, or actually equal, because we start kind of from 0, we want to execute, so open our file send email, run the script. What we can do, we can import OS, which is a Python library that allows us to access our operating system's functions, so like opening files, for example. And we will type in os.system and execute the command in a subshell. So basically we can call it in command prompt, and we will say send email.py, so the name of our file, and we run it now. We'll type in some keys and random, so we'll reach 50. We can see something is running, and we are sending emails very often now, as you can see, but it's because we actually did restart our key count. So key count equals 0, and now it will run, send an email, set the key count to 0, and start all over again. But you can see what we sent, and perfect, as we expected, we have our output. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and you learned something.